Let's get into this. We've got a review here, right? From the Glasgow Film Festival. And it's looking at a film called The Players.
Yeah, exactly. And our plan today, it isn't just to, rehash the plot.
No. We want to really unpack what this reviewer thought, what themes jumped out at them, what plot points did they focus on.
Right. How do they feel about it? What did they find insightful or maybe troubling?
And the setting is key here, isn't it? The world of theater, which, as the review suggests, can have some, well, pretty unsettling dynamics going on.
Definitely. So we're using this review as our guide, really, seeing the film through their specific lens, looking at power, vulnerability.
And maybe complicity in that kind of creative space.
Precisely. So should we start with how the reviewer sets the scene?
Yeah, let's do that. So the film is The Players, written and directed by Sarah Galea Davis, and this was its international debut at Glasgow.
That's what the review says, yeah. And it's set back in the summer of '94.
Okay, 94.
Yeah.
And the location is this avant-garde theater troupe.
And they're working on something pretty ambitious, a 7-hour version of Hamlet.
7 hours, wow. And the review mentions it's not straight Shakespeare either. Lots of movement, interpretive dance, replacing like half the script.
Yeah, quite the undertaking. It definitely paints a picture of a very specific, probably quite intense environment.
And the reviewer seems to immediately zoom in on the central relationship, the core dynamic, really, between two main characters.
Right. First up, there's Emily. She's played by Stefani Kimber. And she's young, only 15.
The review says she was sort of plucked from obscurity, and she's obviously thrilled, to be part of this group with older, established people.
But the reviewer really highlights her vulnerability. Apparently, her home life isn't great parents separating, so she's looking for acceptance, maybe even a kind of substitute family in this troupe.
Which, unfortunately, sounds like it makes her quite susceptible.
Exactly. And the other key figure is the director, Reinhard Frank, played by Eric Johnson.
And the review is pretty clear, isn't it? That his initial attention towards Emily, which might look okay at first glance.
Yeah, it very quickly shifts into something much darker.
Yeah.
Manipulative.
And the reviewer points out how fast that slide happens. Like, Emily starts joining the adults for a drink, maybe a cigarette, feeling grown up.
And then boom, the manipulation escalates.
Yeah.
There's this bit where Reinhardt just decides Emily needs short hair.
Right. And his girlfriend, Marley, played by Jess Salguero, she's the one who actually cuts it.
It's one of those details the reviewer uses to show the casual control starting to take hold.
Yeah.
But it gets worse.
The review brings up Reinhardt suggesting setting Emily's costume on fire during a performance.
Yeah. And the truly chilling part, according to the reviewer, is how little reaction that gets from the others. It suggests these harmful, dangerous ideas are just accepted, normalized almost.
The reviewer really doesn't mince words about Reinhardt, do they? They call him, what was it, pretentious, odious?
Yeah. Ammon with a fragile ego. Yeah. They clearly see his temper, his ego as driving everything. This need to dominate comes from his own inadequacy. He's the one who does the bruising, as they put it.
And framing him like that leads the reviewer into what feels like the film's central, really uncomfortable territory to the other people, the rest of the troupe.
Exactly. If Reinhardt's the predator, the reviewer asks again and again, why isn't anyone else doing anything? Why aren't they stopping him? Or even just calling him out?
That seems to be the critical focus for the reviewer. They even pull out specific lines from the film that show these, harmful attitudes, like one actor warning Emily.
Oh, yeah, that line. Something like, you can't just quit because the director made you feel weird. You'll never get hired again.
Which the reviewer calls out as dubious and harmful advice. Just awful.
And then there's another actress suggesting, all directors are going to want to sleep with you. You got to play the game.
So the reviewer sees these quotes as showing a culture where this behavior is just expected, something you have to put up with.
Seems so. And through all this, the film, at least in the reviewer's reading, is posing these tough questions like, why are these adults having these intense, intimate chats with a sheltered kid?
Right. And how can the women especially seem to blame the victim here? Someone so obviously vulnerable. Where's the solidarity, the, sisterhood?
And the reviewer explicitly connects these questions, these dynamics, to the wider conversations that really came to the forefront with the #MeToo movement.
Interesting. Linking that specific 94 setting to things we're still grappling with now.
But they also make a point of saying that the film suggests the answers aren't simple. You know,
Yeah.
it's complicated why people don't intervene.
Okay, so what about the actual filmmaking? The performances, the style? The reviewers seem pretty impressed there.
Very much so. They called both leads, Stefani Kimber as Emily and Eric Johnson as Reinhardt, excellent and magnetic.
They really praised Kimmer for capturing that mix of, like, youthful hopefulness, but also the awkwardness.
And that desperate need to fit in.
Yeah.
And they keep coming back to how her vulnerability, rooted in that difficult home situation, is just so clear.
And how Reinhardt, or rather Johnson playing Reinhardt, seems to just zero in on that immediately.
Absolutely. And Johnson's performance sounds, frankly, quite terrifying based on this review. Described as stroppy and charming, passionate and dangerous,
Oh.
all at once.
The reviewer highlights his ability to switch, right? Between being softly spoken, giving compliments, and then suddenly gripping someone's arm, giving instructions. Really unsettling.
Yeah, and there's this specific moment the reviewer mentions when a festival director gives some faint praise, like, my assistant said she was riveted or something. And Johnson's eyes, as Reinhardt, just apparently blaze with humiliation and rage. It perfectly illustrates the reviewer's point about that fragile ego driving his need for control.
Wow, okay. And the film's style overall, what's the feel?
The reviewer describes it as quiet, intense, and brooding. And interestingly, they say it avoids the usual, maybe expected theatrical drama, the histrionics,
So how does it build the mood then?
through things like sepia-toned lighting, unsteady close-ups, and just really focusing on those disturbing character interactions we've been talking about.
They summed it up as quietly dangerous and emotionally charged, I think.
Exactly. It sounds like it relies on atmosphere and that simmering tension between the characters, rather than big, dramatic blow-ups.
So bringing it all together, what's the reviewer's final verdict on the players?
Well, they feel very strongly that the director, Galea Davis, is issuing a clear condemnation. Not just of Reinhardt, but maybe even more so of the people around him who enable him or just stand by.
So the film wants the audience to feel angry, disgusted.
That's definitely the sense the reviewer gets. But then they highlight this twist, this challenge the film seems to throw out.
Which is?
This provocative question aimed right at the viewer. But would we behave any differently?
Ah, right. So it turns the mirror back.
Precisely. It's not just about judging the characters on screen. It's asking you, the viewer, to think about your own potential responses or lack of response in similar situations.
So the reviewer ultimately sees it as, what, interesting, complex.
Yeah, and effective. Effective in exposing those potential abuses within the theater industry.
Okay, so this deep dive into the review really paints the players as a film laser-focused on power, exploitation, and, crucially, that murky area of complicity, all seen through this one vulnerable teenager's eyes.
And the reviewer found it stylistically intense, but also really sharp in asking these difficult questions about behavior, about intervention, about us.
What really stands out from the review, I think, is that focus shift, not just on the bad guy, but on everyone else. The bystanders, the culture that allows it.
Yeah, that seems key.
So thinking about that final challenging question the reviewer pulls out, would we behave any differently? Maybe that's something for you, listening, to consider. Think about situations you've been in, maybe at work or school, or even social groups where there are clear power imbalances.
How obvious, or maybe how hidden, is the potential for abuse? Even subtle stuff. And maybe more importantly, where are the chances to step in?
Yeah, what are those small signs, those little moments that maybe get missed, either in how we react or how others react when faced with those kinds of dynamics? Something to think about?